nice to meet you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much for opening this space to us on a Monday.
Of course. Well, very excited for you to see Vian Sora show.
Let's go. First and foremost, can you tell us a bit more about the artist? Because we know it's her first solo exhibition at the gallery, followed by her traveling museum survey.
Yeah, we're really excited to show Vian Sora at Bortolami Gallery, and she's had a really remarkable life journey, Vian. She turns 50 this year. She's only really been making abstract paintings for the past decade. And I think within that time, in the last 5 years, museums have started to collect her work or exhibited it. She likes to kind of dissolve color while she works flat on the ground to create these really intricate, very textural surfaces. And I find them compelling, not just because she's a really, really skilled painter, but because she's really putting all of her life experience into the work. She was born to a Kurdish father and an Iraqi mother in Baghdad, and she lived there up until she was about 30 years old. But she was not a professional artist at the time. She was actually working as a journalist, and she survived multiple wars, but when the U.S. invaded Iraq, she was actually working as a journalist. So she had these really kind of harrowing near-death experiences and experiences with violence and with war that she really kind of puts into all of the paintings in an emotional way.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting to me how Sora's work is still really relevant in today's world, like war, politics. These are just recurring human themes. I'm actually really intrigued by the title of this exhibition, Tepe Gawra, and I know there's the use of this authentic lapis lazuli, this rich historical blue pigment, also known as ultramarine. Can you tell us a bit more about it?
Absolutely. So, Vian loves this color, just formally this kind of rich blue that you see in a lot of her works in this show, and you've seen a lot in her career as well. But she's thinking about lapis lazuli not just as a color that is kind of a symbol of cultural exchange or a symbol of the impact that a color or aesthetic can have on society. Lapis lazuli was this very rare pigment that is mined in what's now Afghanistan. And Vian liked that. It was coming from the Middle East, but it basically made its way into the East and also in the West with old master paintings in the Renaissance. And she loved that this kind of Middle Eastern material made its way throughout the world and had such a big influence. In this painting, which is called Tigris Refrain, she's kind of painting from memory in an emotional way, thinking about the riverbanks along the Tigris River, which is where her grandfather lived in Baghdad. So the kind of blues and these kind of earthy copper colors, they're all colors that remind her of that landscape and remind her of the importance that Iraq has in her art, even though she hasn't really been back there for 20 years now.
So I know that her work might seem to be non-representational, but there are fragments of figuration and text embedded. Can you walk us through a creating process?
Absolutely. So Vian titled this painting Tamarisk, and she started to think about the tamarisk tree, which is native to eastern Iraq, and it's a tree that kind of retains water in the desert. It's a very beautiful form. And the start process for this painting is to basically lay the canvas on the ground, and she makes sure that it's very, very slick and wet with paint. And then she's taking kind of handfuls of powdered colored pigment and letting it dissolve and bloom into the surface. It's a very intuitive process, and you get these very organic, kind of botanical abstractions that way. And she does this over many, 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 many layers. Sometimes there's 30 or 40 layers of paint. Simultaneously, while she's doing that, she'll kind of create these edges or sometimes paint over the more organic abstraction with these kind of hard edge shapes, which actually were developed out of her calligraphy practice, because she learned how to do Arabic calligraphy when she was younger. So she has this very precise hand. She has a lot of control, but it's an interesting tension between the kind of organic, more chaotic approach to abstraction, and then this kind of rigorous control.
I agree. I think there's always this sense of chaos and rhythm, repetition in her work.
Totally.
Which makes it so unique. Now I have a question for you.
Sure.
If a collector wants to understand the heart of this exhibition, which work would you point them to as the most pivotal one in terms of her practice now?
It's very hard to pick favorites for me in this exhibition because there's so many stunning paintings. I'm really, really proud of Vian. But I have to say this painting marks a bit of a new direction. All of her paintings have so much color in them, but this painting particularly focuses on texture and material. She's using this very beautiful copper color in the top right corner in different areas. And then towards the center of the painting, she's using almost like iron oxide or the color of oxidized copper. And it becomes more about these kind of textures she's achieving with the paint. You focus more on the sculptural qualities of how she makes a painting. I also just love this red, which transitions from a very kind of bright cadmium red at the bottom, and then very subtly becomes this gradient where she's achieving almost like a crimson or scarlet, which is actually the title of this painting. I think it makes for a really compelling composition, and I'm really excited to see what she does next with this kind of approach.
Final question. I know this show has been doing really well, and Sora has been well received by both private collections and also public institutions. Anything exciting to share? And how is the gallery positioning her in this art market landscape?
Yeah, it's interesting. People really, really responded to this show. And Vian made all of these paintings, began all of these paintings right when she was opening a museum survey show that's traveling right now. So it opened in July last year at Arbor Museum of Art, and then traveled to the Louisville Speed Museum of Art, where Vian lives. And the last and final stop of this show will open in next month at the Asia Society in Houston. So the people who have been watching Vian's evolution are very impressed. And she's also had this totally new audience of people who did not yet know her work, because she hasn't had that many exhibitions in New York, really kind of, respond and admire what she's doing. She wrote a really beautiful text for the show. It was a statement about process, and she was going back to the story, this famous story about a British military officer who refused to shell an Italian city in World War II because he knew that there were these kind of priceless Piero della Francesca paintings in this town. And to her, that is kind of an allegory of the importance of art and the permanence of art in times of war, in times of conflict. And it really kind of typifies what she's all about.
This is beautiful. I think I have faith in her. And thank you so much for this comprehensive tour.
Thank you for being such an advocate of Vian, and you're welcome anytime, Kaylin. It's always a pleasure to speaking with you.
Yeah, it's my honor.